is the 59th Independence Anniversary special on TVC, and we have been looking at different aspects of our journey to nationhood. Right now, the successive governments in Nigeria has had dents created by questionable rule of law stands.
Now, even in democratic regime, the story may not be particularly different, but there is a school of thought that rule of law and social justice have role in determining how other aspects of development will play out. We recently remember the issue of national security versus the rule of law. Now, to discuss this, we have in the studio an international lawyer and UK solicitor, Femi Aina, in the studio. It's nice to have you join us.
Yes,
right?
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Happy Independence.
Exactly. Same to you too. Okay. Now, the rule of law is something that everyone talks about. It's just like they say integrity. Everyone say, okay, we have it. But Nigeria has not really fared well when it comes to that index, that measurement, due to so many things. We have come a long way, 59 years so far. What do you think is the challenge when we look at it from the law perspective, look at it from the constitutional perspective, look at it from the judiciary perspective?
Yes, but there is something you need to know.
Okay.
In this country, we have a document, and that document is called the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And what is the Constitution? Constitution is a document that relates the relationship between citizens and government. And so you will expect citizens to abide by the Constitution, and at the same time, you will expect government to abide by the Constitution. And even if you practice democracy, democracy cannot thrive without a rule of law.
Absolutely.
And what does rule of law mean? It means that there is equality before the law. The king and the subjects, all of them are subject to the law. And you cannot have one rule for the noble, another one for the peasant. And the honors for every, you see, when you look at the doctrine of government, one thing that is very important is this. For every actions of government, there must be a law to back it up. And if a rule of law is going to thrive in any society, the first starting point is this. Government must respect domestic law, they must respect international law, they must respect international institutions. And the decisions of court has to be respected. You cannot cherry pick. You cannot have a coercive government. And you cannot have a situation whereby if your right is thrived upon, you will approach the court. And then if another citizen now approach the court and the court rule in your favor, you won't respect that. You see, the country cannot thrive that way. And if you want peace, if you want development, the rule of law must prevail.
Yes. All right, recent developments have made Nigerians, especially on social media, question if there really is, if we say we practice democracy, if there really is rule of law in the country. We look at the issue of Showore, we look at the issue of El Zakzaki, Sambo Dasuki, and there has been questions that this is threatening a democracy, so to speak. You are a lawyer. Talk to us, the implications of this.
I do agree, because you see, you can't allow a society where impunity will be the order of the day. And the supreme law of the land is the liberty of the individual. You cannot just take it, except there is a court order, except when it is necessary in the interest of national security. And even if you have to do it in the interest of national security, at a point you have to approach the court, because you can't detain people indefinitely. And the recent happenings in Nigeria is quite unfortunate, that you have people whereby if they question their mandate to be president of this country, they will approach the court to defend their mandate that, look, and the court will rule in their favor. They will go on the rooftop and say, okay, I have a judgment, this is this. But at the same time, if an individual now challenge their action, what you will discover is that they are not ready to obey the court order. And it's not limited to Showore, it's not limited to El Sakisaki. Look at what happened when the court ruled that the Peace Corps of Nigeria, you must vacate their office. You must pay 12 million or whatever in damages. And you don't respect that. Look, since 2015, Dasuki might have offended all of us allegedly, but at the same time, that is not an excuse to lock him up since 2015 to date. And the court has ruled that you must release this man. And you see, if you look at it, everything in the round, I'm not saying you shouldn't investigate people. I'm not saying we should let the corrupt just get away with their loot. But once the court rule that, look, you must release them. You must obey that. That is where the rule of law prevailed. Look at what happened recently in United Kingdom. They rule against the Prime Minister. That you have no, it is quite unlawful of you to prorogate Parliament. And then what happened? Immediately the next day, they recalled Parliament. And the Prime Minister, he said, look, I'm not happy with this judgment, but I must respect the judiciary. So you cannot, by your action, undermine the rule of law. You must respect that. And if you want peace, if you want unity, which is more of a staple diet in Nigeria, the best thing you can do is that those in power, they must know that citizens have the right to challenge their action. And once they challenge their action, they must try in the spirit of the peace and unity which they are preaching, and respect that. And the other point, so let me just amplify it a bit again, is this. Now we are practicing democracy. 59 years down the line, you still have a situation where people are being unlawfully detained. You still have a situation where judges are being threatened for their action. Now, the people who are going to suffer, they are the ordinary citizens. And that is why all of us must rise up to this challenge and be very critical. It may well be we don't like Showore types of his political ambition that, look, if I become president of Nigeria, I'm going to license marijuana. So if your wife is in labor and she gets to hospital, instead of epidural or whatever, they should give her marijuana. We may not want that sort of president. And also, people who are in power, they must try to abide by some level of criticism. And they must see criticism as part of their personal development too. Citizens must have the right to say, look, what this government is doing and what have you. We can't say, because they are exercising their freedom of speech, the next thing we are going to do is to lock them up. And what is going on now is as if we are intimidating people not to be critical. And our democracy will not develop if we continue along that line.
All right. A lot of people have argued from the perspective of, look, we need to go back to the basics. And the basics is where you started from, where you said we have a document that every other law, every other standards, as far as a country is concerned, is derivable from it, which is the Constitution. Yes. Now, the 1999 Constitution as we have it, a lot of people have issues against the Constitution. They said, this Constitution is not our Constitution. This document is not our, they say it's the military forced it upon us and all. Do you think when it comes to moving forward with the kind of jurisprudence, with the kind of rule of law, with the kind of approach, or even systems of government, do you think that is where we should have to start from in the first place?
Well, why do we have Parliament? Parliament makes the law. If you have a problem with the Constitution, what do? You just go to Parliament and ask them to amend the law. And one of the beauty of a written Constitution is flexibility. So we can say, look, that's why do we have members of Parliament? Why do we have people who are representing us in Parliament? So if you have issue, day in, day out, even on your channel, you see them sitting in committee stage asking stakeholders to come, then they come up with and say, we are going to amend the law and what have you. You see, there is nothing like a perfect constitution, we all agree, because the society evolves with time. And that is why once this parliament goes, another parliament comes in, then they pass new law, they repeal law, they amend laws, just to make sure, because the society is revolving. My major concern is this. We've practiced a parliamentary system of government. We are now in a presidential system of government. Now you hear the president's speech this morning. That is supposed to be what is called a State of the Nation address. At the same time, you have a president who has even addressed major issues, including the judgment against them and what have you. But at the same time, what he has not addressed is this, what is going on in the country, whereby we are just locking people, we are not obeying court order. And during the, I think you mentioned that in your intro, during the 58th NBA conference, he said the rule of law can just be put aside because of national security. Yeah, that is a convenient excuse. And that does not give you a license just to pick people up and lock them up. Even the terrorists, they are still charged to court at the end of the day, if they are the worst, not to talk of political activists. But my major concern is this. If this country is going to move forward, those at the seat of power must obey what is called the doctrine of governance. That means for every action, there must be a law, and once somebody rules against them, they must abide by the spirit of the court judgment. Unless they do that, anarchy will be the order of the day.
On the one hand, there is the Constitution, and on the other hand, there is the judiciary that is seen as the last hope of the common man.
Yeah.
Now, where do we begin to strengthen the judiciary? Because the confidence of Nigerians are reposed on them to ensure that this rule of law is actually respected.
Yes.
How do we strengthen that institution to ensure that whatever the rule is respected?
Yes, there are two ways to it. Number one, and I do take your point, but let me invite you to take my point, that you have a judge. Why is he there? To interpret the law.
Absolutely.
As may be appropriate. And now you bring people to him to try them so that he can convict, or accuse if they are found not guilty. And if he take a decision, the question remains, why do you bring these people to him in the first instance if you are not going to obey his decision? And if you rule that, look, release them, you have to do that. And in order to strengthen the judiciary, the executive, first of all, because you said the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. That can only happen if the common man has confidence in that judiciary. And the government of the day must not undermine the confidence of the judiciary. And the only way they can do that is to respect the decision of the court. It is just a citizen called Gina Miller also that challenged the prorogation of parliament in United Kingdom of recent. It's just an ordinary citizen. And the court ruled that you cannot do that as the prime minister of this country because you are relying on a report which is this and not factually correct. And what happened the next day? The prime minister said, I'm going to abide by that decision. That is how you generate the confidence. That is how you strengthen the institution. And at the same time, the problem we have is this. We must not intimidate these judges. They must be able to work without any form of intimidation. And thereafter, moving on, at the same time, if you want the public to have that confidence, number one, you must make sure the people we appoint as judges are people who have credibility. That is one. Number two, you need to look at their condition of service. Judges must not be impecunious. We must pay reasonable salaries so that they won't be taking money here and there. Let's forget what has happened in the past. And at the same time, the working condition must be very suitable. The problem we have in Nigeria is that judges are still working in an anachronistic fashion, whereby look at what happened during the presidential election, judgment being read for 8 hours, and lawyers sitting down there feeling bored and what have you. What happened? Where I've been and where I come from, such long judgment, what they do, they read the summary. And immediately they finish reading the summary and you go on the court website, the full judgment is there for you to read and download. The summary is just for journalists and what have you. These are the principles. You can't ask people to sit for 8 hours. Number one, for those who are listening to you, it's not even healthy. For you yourself, as the judge, it's unhealthy. The judgment in Ogun State, the election tribunal, that was read for almost 6 hours. Why don't we do summary? So, this is the problem. And also this idea whereby, every little infraction has to go to court. That's not good. And at the same time, you see, look at what is happening in Nigeria here. Any election dispute, everybody is just going to court. You have women who are applying to that same court, asking for maintenance for their children so that they can pay school fees. Some of them want to divorce their ex-husband and move on with their life. But because politicians are overwhelming the court with unnecessary disputes.
And taking it to the Supreme Court.
Do you understand me? Taking it to the Supreme Court. Yeah. And because of that, all those cases which relates to personal individual are being put aside. And also, one thing we need to understand is this. Even in United Kingdom, as today is public holiday here. Anytime there is a public holiday, that doesn't mean the court just go home and sleep. Because once there is a public holiday, there is likely to be a dispute between husband and wife because that's the time they will need. The women must be able to approach the court. That's why you have 24 hours. The judges are there 24 hours, 365 days a year. Even if I'm here, Those I represent, if anything happens, I have a number I can call. They will put me through to the judge. He will say, what is the problem?
Let me bring you to the issue of the knowledge of basic law in the first instance. As a Christian, every Christian owns a Bible. As a Muslim, every Muslim owns a Quran. Now, as a citizen, the idea of owning a constitution or even having the knowledge, the basic knowledge of what fundamental human rights are and all of that, we don't see a lot of people wanting to know what it is until maybe they have opportunity to be, to stand as an elected, official, and then they go to, read through the constitution to just acquaint themselves here and there. Do you think the illiteracy from that aspect, not having the knowledge of what fundamental, basic ideas of constitution is, do you think that compounds the challenge?
Yes, I think we can't isolate that totally. But having said that, government also has a responsibility to educate people about their rights. Even where I come from, we have what we call the Human Rights Act 1998, which is similar to Chapter 4 of the Nigerian Constitution, where all these rights are well spelled out. And it is quite unfortunate in Nigeria that people's rights get violated day in, day out.
And they themselves sometimes don't even know.
That the citizens don't even know their rights. That is why public enlightenment has a role to play in that respect. Some of these human rights bodies and what have you, they also have their own, they have a role to play at the same time. But the way it is this. You see, the systems needs to be very effective to be respected. And the problem we have, and what I observe in Nigeria, because I practice here as well, is that, you see, the system is not user-friendly. It is such a system that is so bureaucratic that people don't even have confidence to approach the court. And take, for instance, even if they know they are right, at the same time, the bottlenecks is there whereby they cannot even ventilate that right. Take, for instance, I'll tell you something. If in UK you approach the courts today and you don't have a lawyer, you are not well educated and what have you, there is somebody there who will assist you to fill the form. And that person is there to arrange for you to go and see the judge. And you have some of these people, although it doesn't happen here, they have some sort of mental problem. You see them just piling papers, either they call them holders and what have you. Every morning, if you go to Royal Court of Justice, they come to court making some funny applications. Some of them will say they want to sue the Queen, that's why the Queen cannot be sued because and they still let them see the judges. Right there and then, the judge might rule against them. And some of these judges even have experience. And there was one I watched. He said, look, I'm going to sue the prime minister. I just don't want government. And the judge said, you see, your case is very important. But the implication is that if I rule in your favor, the government of the United Kingdom will just totally collapse. And the man said, yes, that's why I'm here. And he said, but what I want you to do, first of all, go to your doctor. Get a letter that you can really see this case through. And then you come and see me again. Now, the judge knew that, you see, sometimes when they run out of medication, or the medication is working the other way around, they look for somebody to sue. So, so this is where the experience is. But some of them, they know. They just want access to that court. And what we need to do in Nigeria is to make sure people have access to the court. Whether, once their right is violated, they don't need to come through a lawyer. They can go there, whether they want to fill the application in Yoruba or whatever, it matters not. And right there and then, let them see a judge, and the judge can deal with the matter. And other countries, and it's very, very important I mentioned this, there's a particular court, which in UK called Court 37. If you get there today, and you have an application, right there they just tell you go and pay, do your paper, and you are seeing the judge. It doesn't, and they will listen to you. If there is any issue, it can guide you, this is what you do. There are charities in that court at the same time who are going to assist you. So if you want people to know their rights, first of all, they must get justice in a very punctilious manner. That is very important. But by the time they lodge a case in court, 3 years down the line, the case has suffered about 10 or 20 adjournments. And the moment they get to court, they sit from 10 to 4 o'clock. When next their right is violated, do you think they will come back? I leave the answer to you.
Wow.
But then it is said that justice delayed is not justice denied.
Maybe it depends on how anyone sees it here now.
Anyway, by way of education,
Yes,
we talked about perhaps people not understanding
Yeah,
their rights. What is, how important is the aspect of the rule of law to our democracy thriving and people understanding their rights? Because like we said, we are in a democracy and we are looking at it 20 years so far. We need to thrive and move further, looking at the fact that we're celebrating 59
Yeah, I got the gist of your question. And let me just repeat myself for the sake of emphasis, that for a democracy to thrive, the rule of law must prevail. That is very, very vital. If any government try to undermine the rule of law, they are just playing with democracy. It's as simple as that. And I've said this, and I'm repeating it, that justice is for the king, it's also for the subject. It's for the noble, and it's for the peasant. You can't have a two-tier justice system whereby the only rich they are the only people that will have access to justice. You can't have a system whereby the government will choose, this is the order I'm going to obey, this is the order I'm not going to obey. And for the democracy to thrive, you must make sure the system has some element of flexibility. That is very, very important, whereby government citizens must have the right to call government actions into account. And once they do that, whatever the outcome, you must respect that. And at the same time, this idea whereby when citizens criticize you, or when citizens don't even believe in what you are doing, or they have a contrary opinion, the next thing we do is to lock them up. That is not going to help our democracy to thrive. So for democracy to thrive, the citizens must be able to challenge the actions of government. And parliament too, we must respect the sovereignty of parliament. And all these things we are discussing here, they did not start today. They've been there since sliced bread arrived in Nigeria, whenever that was. And since 1641, we've had a Bill of Rights, which makes it fundamental that liberty of citizens cannot just be taken away. How come 59 years down the line, at the end of since independence, we still have government not respecting the court? You still have government behaving as if to say, this is where we go, this is the way to go. So we need to improve.
All right, we need to improve, we need to change things, we need to move forward. Thank you very much, Femi Aino, for coming on the program.
Thank you for coming.
UK Solicitor, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.